Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome back today. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Today's topic is going to be VLOOKUP. We're going to start with VLOOKUP today, and then we're going to move from there for the rest of the week. We're most probably going to database access a little bit and a little bit of theory in the middle of the week. Okay, so Mr. Stoltz, if you haven't been here, welcome here. I see there's a few new names on the screen here. Stay until the end. I'll post a Google form link where you can write any feedback you want, any suggestions. Just a few quick links that's useful. YouTube, Africa Teen Geeks. If you've missed anything, all the subjects, it's online. Search them on YouTube, check them out. Snaplify, they've got some free ebooks, especially for students. You can go watch all your check for books there. Office 365, mahala.ms/sign up offers you a free subscription for 1 year if you're a student or scholar somewhere. And then the bottom two, education.gov and Western Cape Education Online has got it's quite a neat one. The others as well, but you can get your free past exam papers there. You can have a look there. I'll post the document in the chat in a while so everybody can just download it there. Just check it out there. Okay, then we're starting with VLOOKUP. Let me just quickly share this in chat. Okay, it's in chat. You can start downloading in chat and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so the people that's been here, Class Dojo scores, Kyle leading there, and all the others there, the rest, you get marks for attending classes, answering questions, doing informal assessments, and just anything that's worthy of a point. So at any time, if you've got questions in the chat, if you've got answers, any questions in the chat, I'll look at them and I'll reply to them as soon as possible. Okay, so let's start with the official why we are here, and that's for the VLOOKUP. Okay, so VLOOKUP, that's how the formula looks. It's a lookup value where you can look up from the leftmost column of the table and return something anywhere else in the same column or row. Okay, so let's look there. The first thing there is the lookup equals VLOOKUP, and then you get the lookup value. So the lookup value is what are you looking for? So is it a number? Is it a name? Is it a text? Or whatever you are looking for comes by lookup value. So what are you looking for? Okay, it follows by table array. So it means you must highlight where the table is that he must go look. So this can be anywhere in your Excel document. It doesn't have to be on the same sheet. It doesn't have to start at A1. It can start at Z4, for instance, or anything. You go highlight your table array there. Okay, from there on, it needs a column index, and that's the column number where the answer is you want. So normally in the first row will be the key or the name or whatever it must look for, because it looks from the left, from the top to the bottom. As soon as it gets fits your criteria, it goes right and it counts the number of columns you've specified. So if it starts on A1, A1 will be column 1. And if it starts on Z10, Z will be column 1. And AA will be column 2, AB will be column 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then there's the range lookup. Must it be true, exactly the same, or must it not be exactly the same? Okay, so in other words, it's VLOOKUP. What are you looking for? Where must I go look for it? Which column is my answer? And should it be exact or not? Okay, so if you can give me a message or two in the chat just saying you've got your files. If you don't have your files yet, just message me there so I can wait. But we are going to move over to the Excel document in a while. So we are working with past exam papers, what you can get on any of the sites that have been specified or any of the other education sites. Thank you for those replies. Okay, so I'm going to read it And we'll come back to this again every single time, and then we'll work in the document with me if you want to. Okay, so first thing, let's go to question 1. The codes have been developed for each school and are stored in a data worksheet. Now use a VLOOKUP function in cell J2 in the learners worksheet to find the code matching the school display in cell H2. The data or the lookup data appears in a data worksheet. Okay, so I've renamed all the worksheets. So just so, because there's more than one with the same name. So we are working with one, and our cell or the column we are working with is in 1B. Okay, so I'm just going to change my screen quickly. Let's just restart Excel quickly, and then it will be. Okay, so we've got Excel there. And let's jump over to Excel. Okay, so we are working with 1A and 1B, and question 2 will be 2A and 2B, and it will continue from there. So in 1A, I've highlighted where we're going to work in orange. So the orange color, that's where we're working. So the first question asks, we must go to cell J2, which is this one, and we need to find the code for the school. So every school, if you check on 1B, every school has a code. Okay, so in exams, you should have been answering all these questions, but we are working with this one now. Okay, so to do a VLOOKUP, you type in equals VLOOKUP, and then you set your first bracket. So the lookup value, so what are we looking for? We are looking for this name. So we are looking for Word School Superior, and you don't have to put this in inverted commas like we normally have to do when we're working with text. Okay, because it is inside a cell, and this cell, if I can go out there, has already been, it's been general, but it knows it's text, so you don't have to tell him it's text. Okay, so he takes on the properties of that cell. So that's why we're using a cell. So it's equals VLOOKUP. We are working with H2. Now it's a comma or a semicolon, depending on what you're setting, your local setting on your device. So just check it. And then it says the table array. So now where's the table we are working on? So you click on 1B. And this is most probably where most students make a mistake, especially in VLOOKUP. As soon as you click on 1B, it calls it 1B. So if it would have been data, it would have called it data. So now it's 1B. And now you go and you click where your cell is. So it's from here till there. So you don't highlight the heading. You just want the data. So sometimes if you highlight the heading, it can give you wrong answers. So you just go from A4 all the way down, and you stop there on 51, so F51. And then you must make sure it's an absolute cell. Now for an absolute cell to work, after you've highlighted, you press F4 on your keyboard. So it looks like this. Or you must put in the dollar signs before the A, before the 4, before the F, before the 51, if you did not do the absolute cell reference. Now, the absolute cell reference is important because when we drag it down later, it's going to change that A4 to A51. It's going to go A5, A6, A7, A8, A9. Okay, so please make sure you have absolute celled it. And you will see now, I've got two 1Bs. Because I didn't firstly click on it and start it, it's going to give me an error. So before continuing, always make sure you've done this step correctly. Because if I go back to 1A, for example, because I forgot to see, okay, yeah, we want the school name. You see it changes to 1A. And now we're working with 1A from A4 till F51. So it's going to look for the answer on this page. So always make sure you're on the correct worksheet. So there it says 1B, and I've got the correct criteria. I've absolute celled it, and then you put in you lock it with your comma or your semicolon. If I go back to 1A now, it's not going to change anything there. But if I didn't lock it like you saw, it's going to change it. So that's the most important step. That's normally where everybody makes a mistake. So if I go back to 1B, changes there, but I don't need this because we are working with a column number now. So I've said there, what I'm looking for is a school name. Where is the table I've drawn? I've got it there, so it's these. And now it's asking for the column number. So now you go count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you put in number 6. Now, if your column was down here randomly and it started here, this would have been column 1. So it doesn't matter if G is supposed to be 7. Because you've started it here, G would have been 2. So for now, we've started on A1 or A4. So A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we go to 6. I put in my semicolon, and this is the last one of the one. Is it appropriate match? So must it look sort of like what's standing in cell H2, or must it be exact match? Must it be exactly what we saw in H2? Okay, so from now, we want an exact match. Okay, so we click in false. You can either double click on false, or you can type in false there by criteria. So you can go false if you want to, or double click here, and you've got this. Okay, so then you lock the formula, you close the bracket. And if you press enter, it's going to say there nothing trying. So there was something wrong with my formula. And if I say okay, it's going to show me something went wrong with my A because I've been jumping around in different worksheets. I've got 2 marks there. I should only have 1 exclamation mark. So there's my mistake. He doesn't know where he is looking at. Okay, so that's why it's always important not to jump around when you're in this middle step. So when you're busy with the table array, always make sure you know what you want. So I must first make sure, okay, I'm looking for this. Click on the cell. I want this area. I absolute cell it. I move away from the cell by locking it. And there, if I press enter now, it's going to give my answer. Okay, so there's host with a asterisk. And if I go to 1B and I go down to word school superior, it's host with an asterisk. Okay, so if I drag this down again, just to check it, and if I stop here, I double click here, you'll see it's the right name. It's still in B, it's still A4 to 51 because we absolute celled it. It's still 6, so it will all be correctly. So if I go check for one of these schools, let's go E Cape High. If I go back there, there's it, E Cape High, and it's the exact same. Okay, so that's important. Your important steps where normally somebody makes a mistake is 1, make sure you're in the correct worksheet. Number 2, make sure you've locked with an absolute cell reference so it won't change. It won't go to A5, A6, A7, and so on. And then make sure you put in the bracket, a semicolon or a comma to move on to your next column. And it's important, your column number. It starts with the first one here. So if this was B4, B would have been column 1. And A wouldn't have counted as anything because you didn't specify it in your criteria. Okay, does everybody understand that step? Can I jump to question number 2? Okay, thanks for those messages there. Okay, let's go to the second one. Okay, so the second one, air quality description is based on the annual average PM10. We're not going to say that now. Reading, which is found in the column B. Use an appropriate lookup function. Okay, so appropriate, we've got VLOOKUP that looks horizontal. And remember, we've got HLOOKUP also. VLOOKUP, which is vertical, and HLOOKUP, which is horizontal. So we use VLOOKUP for verticals and HLOOKUP for horizontal. Okay, so we will get to horizontal later. Okay, so to determine the air quality described in China, we use air. So we're going to use 2A and 2B, and we are working in cell C18. So if I can jump over to my Excel again, you will see we're in 2A and we're in C18. Okay, so what do they want? They want to check this annual average. And according to the annual average, they want to see what is your air quality description. Okay, now we're at this table quickly, and we're going to stick here with this table. If this was VLOOKUP, it's going to go down and it's going to see, okay, so now we've got 98. Okay, so 0, okay, it's bigger than 0, it's bigger than 50. Okay, it's not bigger than 100, so let's get one up. So it's going to give this answer, or anything in this column, depending on what you are specifying as your column number. If we use HLOOKUP, it's the different way. It's going to start here and it's going to look around there and it's going to look for something. So if this table was flipped and it was 0, 50, 100 with the answer, with the answers, it would have worked. So if the table was looking like this, it would have been HLOOKUP. So you're going to go, okay, it's 98, 98, 98, and it's going to jump back because it's not bigger than this, and it's going to give this answer. So this is when you work with HLOOKUP, when your table is flipped. Okay, but if your table is like this, it's VLOOKUP. Okay, so let's start with the formula quickly. Okay, so it's exact same, equals VLOOKUP. Lookup value, what are we looking for? We are working with the average, annual average. So it's this number, semicolon, my table. I jump to cell 2, and I don't take that. I only take from here. So now I've got this. And I do my absolute cell. And I put in my semicolon or my comma to lock it basically. And then it asks there the column index number. So this is column 1. And this is column 2. So there should be 2. And this is not column 1, 2, 3. Okay, so because of this, it's going to be column 2 because we started here. And then you say, go. And now the question is it true or false? Okay, so it can't be an exact match because it's not 0 to 301. So it's going to be appropriate match. Now, what appropriate means is it's going to look for something the closest to whatever you've written. Now, this is 98. Now, I've shown it goes down, it goes down. I'm not bigger than this. So I go back up 1. If your table was wrong, okay, so I'm just going to finish this one off. Appropriate match, close it off, and I say enter. And there we got 98, moderate. And we go there, it's less, it's 50, so it's moderate. If this was by some method mistaken and was 301, 200, 151, 100, and so on. Let's just put some random numbers in here. So if it was the other way around, it would have gone and said, okay, so 98, whoa, I'm not bigger than 300, so let's just stay there. So it's not going to get anything. It's going to say it's not applicable because there's no criteria for it to fit in. So you must be 100% sure that it is in ascending order. So it must be from small to big if you want to use the appropriate match. And you can see this by, if you click on it and I click there by true, and I go there, if we go back to the formula, it's going to say, if you click there, it's going to say ascending order. Okay, so if I go quickly here and I say back to the questions, and I'm back here by the questions, and I'm just going to jump one back. It says there, by default, the table must be sorted in ascending order. So it's very important to get in ascending order. Otherwise, your appropriate will not work. So for it being, if it's an exact match and it's a lot of names, it doesn't have to be alphabetically. We'll still get the correct answer. But as soon as you move over to appropriate and not exact match, it is very important to have your ascending order. Okay. So let's go to the third question. So this one, the thread status is stored in column G. So we're working there. Use a lookup function cell CF3 in a data with code worksheet to determine which thread status code each piece is based on the thread status in G. Display only the abbreviation, for example, EN. Okay, so it firstly wants the abbreviation. Then this function must work correctly if copied down to the rest of the document, and suddenly it's 6 marks. Okay, so it's been 3 and 4 marks, but now it wants 6 marks. Okay, so let's jump over to Excel, and we're working in 3A and 3B. Okay, so jumping to 3A, and you will see we are here. Okay, number 4.4. And we want to work in F3. We want to see what is their level. So if I go to 3B, I've got the critically endangered, CR, endangered, EN, and so on and all there. Okay, so if I go back there, we need to go see, according to this abbreviation, what it is. Okay, so we go there, equals VLOOKUP. Okay, so it says there use a function and the data, and it must be the thread status is stored in column G. So we've got this thread status. And the next one, so it's least threatened, comma, where's my table? Jump to 3B, and I highlight this table. Seeing it's, the name is on the left. And it's important for it to be left because it starts with your first row to look for the answer, what you're looking for. If this was swapped around, you would have gotten a not applicable. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, so we've got this. We're going to absolute cell it by pressing on F4. And we are locking it. Okay, so it's G. We're working in 3B, A1 to B4. And you see, because I waited, it only did the 1. So I have to click on A1 and press F4 to absolute cell that as well. Okay, so always make sure both are absolute celled. Okay, column index, it's column 2. That's where my answer is. Semicolon, is it the appropriate match or is it an exact match? Now this time we want an exact match. And we can lock the formula and press enter. Okay, so that's least threatened. And if I take this down, you will see, okay, least threatened, EN for endangered, EN for endangered, EN for endangered. So we've got the formula correct. Okay, if you've got any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I'm assuming everybody has got this correct. I can't see your faces, so you have to chat to me, even if it's private. It's a right too. Thank you, guys. Okay, so let's jump over to the questions. Okay, so we've done that 3. Let's go over. So if you can see, that's 6 marks for doing exactly the same what you've done for 3 marks. Okay, so it's just the matter of who has set the paper and what they have thought the paper should be. So it's normally 4 or 5 marks, but you can be lucky in 6 marks. And I believe VLOOKUP is very easy. It's just 4 questions, 4 answers, and you've got it. Okay, so this is what most probably one of the more times you can easily get marks. Okay, so VLOOKUP is not that hard. Okay, the biggest part is determining if it should be a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP. Okay, so let's see there. Use a VLOOKUP function in cell B6 to determine to which type of birds in cell A6 belongs by using a table. And we will be working with 4A and 4B. Okay, so let's go over to the Excel. Okay, so on this Excel, you've got this, and it says there, we're working on if on B6, question number 4.2. They are looking at the birds, and if I go to 4B, they want to know what type of bird it is. Okay, so they're going to see there what the group is and what type it is. Okay, so we need to see the grouping of the bird. Okay, so there's the bird. So let's see this. So equals. And then we start with what are we looking at? VLOOKUP. Okay, the lookup value. So what we're looking for is a bird. Semicolon, where's my table? I go to 4B and I highlight all this and I absolute cell and I lock it. And then I just check, I just stop. Okay, I am in 4B, so it's a correct worksheet. It is A2 to B21, so I can continue. Column 1, column 2. My answer is in column 2. And should it be exact or appropriate? This time it should be exact. We want the exact match because we've got a name. And you lock it and you press enter. Okay, so there a bird. And if I take this down, it will give my answers. Okay, so obviously it's going to give because it's grouped by the groups. So if you've done this and you can take it, if I take this down all the way here, it should give, there's the invertebrates, there's the plants. So they've given you, actually given you the answers. There it goes other. So it is correctly. You can then just undo that. After checking, it's always important to check your work, see if it works, do the tests, and you will get your full marks. So there's it, 4 easy marks. Okay, let's jump over to the PowerPoint again. And there's the second one. Okay, so the second one, the different storage types of the songs are stored in a code in the worksheet. Add a lookup function in cell F2. So sometimes they say exactly a VLOOKUP, and sometimes they leave it over for interpretation. Normally, when they don't say it, it's going to count an extra mark because they'll give you a mark for using VLOOKUP and not HLOOKUP. But if they say VLOOKUP, normally they don't give you the answer for typing in equals VLOOKUP because they told you to do it. Okay, so there it says there, use a lookup. In the worksheet, determine a song storage. It's in column A, and then you work in the code sheet, and we're working in F2. So we're in 5A and 5B. So on 5A and 5B, we are going to get the codes now. Okay, so we are in F2 by 5A. That's where the answer must be. And our code is in A. And if you get a question where it just says lookup, always go to where the data is stored. So this would have been code, but now it's 5B. So you click on 5B and you go check there. It says there code type. Okay, it's going down. So it's a VLOOKUP and it's not the other way around. So it's not an HLOOKUP. So if it was 1, 2, 3, CD, DVD, and MP3, this would have been a HLOOKUP. Okay, so it's going down. So we are working with the VLOOKUP. Okay, so by going back to 5A, you can start with equals VLOOKUP. My lookup value, we're working with the code in A2. Where's my table? It's in 5B. And I highlight this. I don't highlight the heading. I make sure with an absolute cell. Wrong one. Absolute cell. And I lock it. And after I've locked it, you go check. Okay, my worksheet name is correctly. There's only 1 and 1 and only 1 exclamation mark. And I have absolute celled it. So that part's correct. And then I jump over to column index, column 1, column 2. I want this to show. So I go to column 2. is it an appropriate match or an exact match? It works 1, 2, 3, so it's an exact match. We don't want appropriate match. And we close it and we press enter. Okay, so VLOOKUP is code 3, it's an MP3. And if I jump to 5B, code 3 is an MP3. So if I go down from MP3 and I go down all the way and I go down, well, okay, so there's 2, so it's DVD. There's 1, so it's CD. Okay, the previous question. Okay, let's quickly go check there. 4A. And you drag it down to B25. Okay, let's go quickly see there. Okay, so there was a question. It said if you drag it all the way down, it says there by red algae, it says not applicable. Okay, so if I go jump to 4B and I go check for the answers here, and I go down, you won't see red algae here. So there's no group there with the name red algae. Okay, so that's why it's not applicable. So if I add it, let's just copy it so we know it's spelled correct. So if I copy this, that's why these are saying also not applicable, because it's not inside the cell. And I add it at the bottom, and I say a new answer just quickly. And now it is important, it will not show, because you've told it only to check to B21. So if I change that to B22 and I say enter, it's going to say new answer. Okay, so that's the only way, that's why it's not applicable, because it's not in the table you have indicated. So sometimes what happens is, and especially I'm going to jump to the other 5A quickly. Sometimes what happens is if I go to 3 and I make a space after 3 and I press enter, it sometimes doesn't show, especially with numbers, you're fine. But if I go to 4A and I've got mammals and okay, let's get birds. And if I do this, it's going to be not applicable because it counts text as exact. So it has to be bird space. That's why you'll get a not applicable by using the birds one with the space. So it's just a question from checking not applicable. The first thing you check is your spelling, because sometimes you make a spelling mistake or your keyboard's lazy and you miss something. And now it says, and now you think, oh, okay, yes, my formula is wrong. Okay, but it's just a spelling mistake. That could be one. It could be a space mistake, or in other words, it's not inside the criteria. So that's the 3 things that can happen if it's not applicable. Okay, so it's either a spelling mistake, a space that you can't see, and that's probably the most often one that you miss. And the third one is it doesn't show on the group. Okay, thanks for that question. Okay, so we've done 5. We've got the MP3s, 2 for DVDs, and 1 we've got the CDs. Okay, so let's go to question number 6. Okay, question number 6. Miners' salaries are calculated according to the number of shifts they work per month. So that's in column D. And then I use a VLOOKUP function, column F, and the data and the scale worksheet to determine the rate at which salaries are calculated. Copy the function down to the other cells. And just a note by that, if it says copy the function down, even if you get this completely wrong, just dragging down the formula that you've tried will earn you 1 mark. Okay, so this is actually 4 marks and 1 for dragging down. So that's why sometimes it stacks up to 6 marks for doing, because you need to drag it down for 1 point. It didn't say VLOOKUP for the other point, and 4 points for every single one. So normally it's supposed to count 4 marks, 3 if they say it's a VLOOKUP, and 1 more if they say you need to drag this down. Okay, so back to question 6. So we're working in 6A and 6B. And it says use a VLOOKUP function, and we've got this. So in 6A and 6B. B. So let's jump over to Excel quickly. Okay, so we're working here in scale, and it's working with the number of shifts. Okay, so you would have done this in a previous question, but we're still going to continue here, and then we'll drag it down and we'll see what happens with this blank here. Okay, so what it wants is equals VLOOKUP, and it says the lookup value. So what am I looking? I want to see the number of shifts the person worked determines the scale they are getting paid on. Okay, so you click on D3, so because there's the number of shifts. The table, it's on 6B. So you go there, there's the number of shifts, rates. We go down, we're working with this, absolute cell, and we say comma or semicolon, and then we check. Okay, so 6B, we've got a correct name, and we have locked our table and column index. So column 1, column 2, we are working on column 2, and then we're asking for a range. Now, it's not an exact match because it's not 0 to 13, it jumps. So it's an appropriate match. So double click on appropriate, you lock it, and you press enter. So now it says your scale is 150. Okay, so before we drag it down, let's see the answer. So it says 150. So if a cell is blank, it presumes it as a 0. Okay, so as soon as you do a formula for this and you get the answer, let's say 12 or 11 or whatever, so 12, and then that will change the answer as well. Okay, so changing here, or if I drag this down quickly, we will see 10 gets 250, 12 gets 275. So 10, that's there, it's less than that, that's 250. 12, it's less than 13, so it's 275. Now let's say we change the 12 or the 11 one from 275 to 290. If I press enter here, and I go back to 6A, we've changed that to 90. It will change the 290s as well on this side. Okay, so that's why we use formulas, because it fixes steps. And if you change something in one cell, it drags all the information through for every single cell, the reference to that specific cell that you've worked in. Okay, so just because it's a blank, it's a 0, you get 150. And if as soon as they say, okay, yes, they forgot Reese Adams got 5 shifts, and then it will change to the most appropriate answer depending on what you've set there. Okay, so we're jumping over to question 7, and you'll remember this from a previous one. We've worked on this once before. Okay, last 2 questions. This one says use an appropriate lookup function cell J3 to display the award that Garrison will receive based on a score in cell H3. Okay, so we're working in the awards. So we're working on 7A and 7B. And we are working by the orange there in 4.5, question J. Okay, so based on the score they received, they will get an award. So if I go to 7B, I see there's the award, and there's a description, and there's the score. Okay, so again, it's an ascending, and here is your table, and it's column 1, 2, and column 3. Okay, so we want the answer from column 2 there. So let's quickly do the formula. So we go equals VLOOKUP. My lookup value is the score. My table is, the table is normally in the next sheet, but sometimes they give it to you in the same sheet. Then you don't have to worry about this aspect of renaming, but you still need to always absolute cell, especially because we want to drag it down, because there's no use in writing a VLOOKUP formula if we can't drag it down. Then you could have just typed in no award, bronze, gold, silver. So that's why we are using the VLOOKUP. Okay, so you always need to absolute cell this, and just depending on where it is, if it's in a different cell, you need to worry about this. But if it's an exact same worksheet, you do not need to worry about this part. Okay, so column index, they want the award. So it's column 2. So we're looking for the award. And then it says there, is it exact or appropriate? You check at the score. It's not numbered from 0 to 500. So it's not an exact match. You must go to appropriate. And you lock it. Press enter and you'll see 488 is silver. Go back to 7B. Yes, it's less than 500. So yes, it's the silver. And if I drag it down to somebody that's got more than 500 or there 500, it should be gold. And you see, okay, it's gold, 200 is bronze, and you've got less than 300 and it's bronze. Okay, so just check everything's right, and there's an easy 4 marks there. Okay. And the last question for today, and then we'll open for any other answers there or any other questions. Insert a VLOOKUP function, cell R8, to determine CO2 emission for each engine size in column E. Use the table CO2 worksheet. Ensure that the function will work correctly if copied to the rest of the document in column R. Okay, so let's jump over back to Excel, and we will see we're working in 8A, and we're working on 3.9, and we are wanting to see no, 7A. Yes, it's 8. We are wanting to see, depending on the engine size, what is our price. So you need to go all the way to the right. And this, what most probably happens a lot. You open it and you say, but there's no engine size. What must I do now? Okay, because it happens, they do it, and you say, okay, there's no engine size. So now you think, always make sure you are on A and 1, because sometimes they do it. They roll it down or to the right, and you think, okay, what's happening now? Okay, so we need to work with the engine size, and that's all the way on column E. Okay, so we start with, let's change this, equals VLOOKUP. Lookup value. So what do I want? So this is, just make sure you're in the exact same line. We go all the way to the engine size in E8. So it's correct there. Table array is on 8B. Absolute cell. Lock it. Check it. It's the correct name, 8B. There's no extra punctuation marks here. It is absolute cell. Column number, we work in column 1, column 2. And then the last question is it an exact match or is it an appropriate match? It's not exact because it's not all the way from there. But you can also, for this time, you could have said exact match because you don't get a 1,250 engine size. So this time you would have probably used exact match, because if somebody typed in 1250, it would have been a mistake because it's not there. Okay, but it doesn't matter for this time. You can use any one of the two, and then you close it up and you say enter. And that's an exception because of the type of product we're working. We're working with a car with specific engine types. You don't get a 1201 engine type. Okay, so sometimes both will be accepted, but always try to get the best for the query we're working with. Okay, because this time it should have been treated as text. That's why we could have said exact. But if I go there and I'll say, okay, no, it's not false. Let's make it true. And if I press enter, you will still get the exact same answer. See, 30, 30, 30, 40, 30. It's still the exact same answer because there can't be any other type of engine sizes. Okay, so there is an exception to the rule from exact or from true or false, but most of the times we use the one that fits the best. So if it's not something that's text normally or exact number like this, for instance, you would go for appropriate match. Okay, so doing marks and something that's got hundreds and thousands of different answers, you would go to appropriate and so on. Okay, so just depending on what product you're working with. Okay, so if I go back to share, let's go to my PowerPoint here quickly. Okay, so we've done those questions. See again, 4 marks. That's normally, they've said VLOOKUP, so it's -1 mark, but they said you must copy it down, so it's +1, so it balances out at 4. So once again, VLOOKUP counts 4 marks. 1 mark for if they say lookup, so you get 1 mark for the VLOOKUP or the HLOOKUP choice you make, and the other answer or the other mark you can get is for copying it down. So normally max 6 marks, but sometimes only 3 marks. So just depending on how much information you get, it's the amount of marks you're going to get. Okay, so if there's any questions on this VLOOKUP, please write it in the chat. I really do believe VLOOKUP is very easy. It's 4 questions, 4 answers, and the most probably let's say, well, I don't know what to call it in English now. The traps there set for you is the A3 to B10 if you don't absolutely sell it, if you don't get the correct worksheet you're working with, or the true and false at the ending, and then maybe if you count the wrong column, say column 3 instead of being column 1 or column 2 or so on and so forth. Okay, it will never be column 1 because the criteria you are working with will always be column 1. It's always going to be column 2 or more. Okay, then this is what I've got planned for the rest of the week. We've got some, we've done VLOOKUP today. Database queries is coming up, and then we're going to do, I think I've planned for Wednesday, we're going to do some Kahoot for multiple choice questions. And then tomorrow we are definitely doing database, and we're starting with different type of queries you're going to get. Okay, so we're just mixing them up. I'm going to drop the link for you guys in the chat now. Please fill it in. And if you've got anything you're struggling with or anything you want to say, just write it there. It's anonymous. I don't know who it is. So you can say there. I won't know you're struggling with something or anything like that. But thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for being here. And thanks for those guys that's coming every single time. Okay, so remember, have a great day. Stay safe. And hard work pays off. Tell everybody else, time slot's 2 o'clock. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot.